Welcome to part 4 of movement for the immune system. Today we are talking about movement in this kind of hip groin area where there are a lot of lymph nodes. So just like the arm exercises, if you saw part 3, that you can do just like creative movement circling, or you can do specific stretching exercises just depending on what is more enjoyable for you and fits into your context. So if you just want to kind of have a little bit of casual movement as you're standing around, you can just do some leg swings. Just like, it's kind of the same things as arms. You can do swings, you can do circles. So leg swings, you can kind of circle around with the hips like this. You can also do this lying on your back on the floor if you have trouble balancing on one leg, if this is too difficult or taxing, but you like kind of that motion, which is this is just a great all-around, kind of moves everything in that area. So you can do that laying down on the floor as well. And you can just do kind of any back and forth, up and down motion like so. And the restorative exercise that I'm going to share with you today is the psoas lunge, which is stretching also the psoas, which wraps around here, and which I'll talk about probably a little bit more when I get around to talking about stress, because the psoas can tighten in response to stress as well as in response to a lot of the activities we do all the time, like sitting, anything we're in this 90-90 position, which we tend to do very frequently, can put the psoas in a shorter position and contribute to tightness there. But that's not really what we're talking about today. We're just talking about moving this area, and the psoas lunge allows you to get a little bit more extension in the hip, which is also a movement that we don't do frequently. We're often in this kind of flexed position, and not very frequently do we get our leg kind of truly behind us. And often when we think it is, it's not moving independently, it's like tilting the whole pelvis with it. So we're going to stabilize the pelvis as we move the leg back, so that we're really actually getting in there. And I'm going to use a pillow under my knee. If you have sensitive knees, you can use a pillow. You can also, I'll show you a version of this where you don't have to be down on the floor. But first I'm going to start with being down here in kind of a traditional-ish lunge position. So one leg up and bent, one leg down and bent. And in the traditional like kind of runner's lunge, you would go all the way forward like so. But if you could see my bones right now, you would notice that my pelvis, this big bone here, triangular-ish bone, is moving with my femur, with my thigh bone, like they're on the same angle. So instead of coming forward and letting our pelvis continue to tilt forward as we go, we're going to put our pelvis in neutral. So the ASIS are these two bony bits on top, those markers, and the pubic bone, the pubic symphysis at the bottom, are going to be kind of on the same vertical plane, like so. You don't have to get super exact about it. You can also just think about not so much not tucking the pelvis under, because that can lead to some other like butt clenching stuff that we're not trying to do. But as you move the pelvis forward, I like to think of there being kind of a straight wall on front that is moving parallel to the wall in front of it, if that makes sense. Not tilting like so. But you can kind of think also, sometimes I'll think about if there was a string attached to my pubic bone, that it's sort of pulling it forward. So instead of the top of the pelvis being pulled forward. If you think about the bottom being pulled forward, it's a very different sensation. And you'll notice there's a lot different kind of stretch going on in here than when you do this one. Also, we're going to try to keep the knee either above the ankle or behind the ankle. So if you need to, move the foot a little bit farther forward. But you probably won't get very far. So don't expect to be as far forward as you would in this one. It's going to be much more of a micro movement, but a very kind of specifically targeted movement. So that's the basic psoas lunge. Also, you can check my hips are a little bit twisted towards you because I'm talking to you, but you do want to keep them pretty straightforward. You can also kind of check that your leg is in alignment behind you and not kind of like twisted in like that. So that's pretty straight. These are pretty straight. You can drop your ribs always and then pushing forward. So go ahead and try that on the other side if you're comfortable down here. If you're not comfortable being down on your knees, I'm going to switch to doing it on the other side. You can get the same motion as long as you are keeping your pelvis neutral and putting your leg into extension. You can get that same kind of relationship. It won't be as much of a stretch in your quads, which also maybe if you have super tight quads and that's a little uncomfortable, you could start with a higher version and then move down. So you can do it in sort of a, feels weird to be doing it to my left now. So I'm going to switch back to this side. There we go. That feels much more natural for some reason. Same kind of shape. You're just going to take it up a little bit. Same marker of keeping your knee above or behind your ankle. And then you're just going to kind of drop your back knee down while you keep your pelvis neutral. You can also drop down and then straighten the back knee a little bit, and that will pull the leg without letting your pelvis move. It will kind of extend the leg a little bit more. You can also do it like if you have a steady chair or a bench, you can put your leg up on something, keeping your pelvis neutral. You're just moving your pelvis forward in space as you move your thigh bone back like that in space. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, just leave a comment or send me an email or something. I'm happy to answer any questions. But that is the exercise for the day, moving this area. Like I said in part 1, if you missed that, walking is a great way to get that motion and also a little bit of arm motion. So 2 for 1 if you're out walking, plus all the other benefits that come with walking. So that is part 4, and there are more parts to come, so stay tuned, subscribe, follow along, and if you haven't seen the first 3, go back and watch those. And please share this with anyone that you think would be interested. I think sometimes we overlook these little things that we can do to boost our immune system and keep ourselves both physically healthier during stressful times, but also emotionally healthier during stressful times. Movement is a good release for that, even if it's these smaller movements. It doesn't have to be, a 5-mile run. So I hope those are useful, and I hope that you can share them with someone else who would enjoy them. And I'll see you back here for part 5.